The major part of the Bible is made up of the Old Testament. You can learn about the Old Testament in a few minutes. The first book of the Bible, Genesis, means creation. It recorded that God created the world in 6 days and rested on the seventh day. It also recorded how man fell into the sin of rebellion. Then mankind took a downward spiral after Cain killed Abel, his brother. People then multiplied, and when they were filled with violence and sexual immorality, God decided to send a flood, and only Noah's family of 8 were spared by staying in an ark. After the flood, people started to multiply again, but the issue of sin carried on. They wanted to build a tower to reach God, but God gave them different languages and people were dispersed all over the world. God then called Abram, who later was named Abraham. Sarah, Abraham, Lot and Terah just remember salt and went as God told Abraham. God promised Abraham land, descendants, and blessings. Lot and Abraham parted ways, and Abraham and Sarah had Isaac. Isaac had 2 sons, and Jacob, later named Israel, had 12 sons who became the 12 tribes of Israel. The youngest son, Joseph, was sold to Egypt by his brothers because of anger and jealousy, but God blessed him and he became the second in command. There was a famine, and Jacob's family of about 70 migrated to Egypt because of Joseph. After 400 years, the Egyptians made the Israelites their slaves. The people cried out to God, and God sent Moses, who sent 10 plagues in Egypt, and Pharaoh released them. God delivered the Israelites through the Red Sea when Pharaoh's army pursued them. God then gave the Israelites the law and the tabernacle at Mount Sinai. 12 spies were sent out to spy on the land that God promised Abraham, but 10 of them gave a bad report of the land because of fear. That causes the Israelites to wander in the wilderness for 40 years. God then raised a new leader, Joshua, and parted Jordan River for them to enter Canaan. The Israelites had to fight for their land. God gave them victory over Jericho. They lost the second battle to a small city, Ai, because Achan sinned, and that costed his life. After his death, Joshua led the Israelites to many victories and settled in the land of Canaan. After the death of Joshua, the people started to disobey God, and each time they did that, they were oppressed by their enemies. God raised judges to deliver them when they cried to him. The Israelites demanded a king, and there were 3 kings who ruled over all the 12 tribes before the kingdom split. The north kingdom hosted 10 tribes called Israel, and the southern kingdom 2 tribes called Judah. In 722 BC, the Assyrian conquered the northern kingdom, and in 586 BC Babylon took Judah. In between, God raised many prophets and gave them many warnings to turn back to God. After 70 years of exile, the Israelites were allowed to go back to their land to rebuild. Ezra led a team to rebuild the temple, and Nehemiah led a team to rebuild the walls. After that, there were 400 years of silence before the Messiah Jesus came into the scene and fulfilled the promises God spoke to take care of the issue of sin. This is the record of the Old Testament.